This is Story Recapped. Today I'm gonna explain a drama, romance, sci-fi film called Never Let Me Go. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. Following a breakthrough in medical science in 1952, doctors were able to extend the human lifespan. This discovery has allowed people to live past 100 by 1967. Inside the operating room at a hospital, a 28-year-old carer named Kathy H. watches from the window as the doctors prepare a patient for surgery. Kathy, who's been working as a carer for 9 years, is quite proud of her work because her patients always surpass expectations. She knows that they're never distressed, even when they're about to make donations. However, years of caring for patients are starting to wear her down, so she spends her time looking into the past instead of thinking about her future. Kathy always ends up reflecting on her childhood when she was at a boarding school called Hailsham, where she became friends with Tommy and Ruth. During a school assembly, Miss Emily warned students against smoking because she found 3 burned cigarettes in the garden. She stressed that it's more dangerous for students to smoke than anyone else because they're special, and it's crucial for them to keep themselves healthy. While students were playing a racket sport in the field, the ball went over the fence, but Tommy refused to go out and get it. After the game, the new guardian, Miss Lucy, asked the girls why Tommy didn't go out to get the ball. The girls claimed that the students never crossed the boundary because it's too dangerous. Ruth recounted that a boy who ran outside the boundary once was found dead 2 days later, with his hands and feet cut off. She added that another girl went over the fence and starved to death because she wasn't allowed to return. During art class, Ruth starts teasing Tommy about his bad drawing. The other students ask him if he's drawing a rat, but he contends it's an elephant. While the male students were preparing for another game, they played a prank on Tommy by refusing to pick him for their team. When the other students left, Tommy screamed in anger for being left out. As the girls laughed at him, Ruth noted that it was Tommy's fault for constantly losing his temper when other boys teased him. Kathy felt sorry for Tommy, so she tried to console him, but Tommy accidentally slapped her. Later on, Kathy noticed Lucy speaking to Tommy. When she asked Lucy what they talked about, Lucy recounted that she advised Tommy not to get upset when other students tease him, because they were only trying to get a reaction out of him. She also told the boy not to worry if he's not good at sports or art, because it's not that important. When Kathy sat with Tommy during lunch, Tommy apologized for hitting her. After class, Tommy and Kathy reflected on what Lucy told him about art. They surmised that Lucy didn't mean to say that art isn't important, because the school seemed to value the students' artwork by displaying them in a gallery. Kathy and Tommy are drawn closer to each other as days go by. They often exchanged glances at each other during class and other school gatherings. During a role-playing exercise, Kathy played as a barista at a coffee shop, while Tommy pretended to be a customer. When Tommy ordered the same beverage as a student who came before him, Lucy asked him to come up with another drink. The other children started laughing at him when he suggested ordering water, so Kathy helped him out by whispering that he could order coffee. One day, Madame Mary Claude arrived at the school to evaluate the students' artwork and poetry so that she could display the best pieces in her gallery. Emily announced her arrival during an assembly and further noted that there would be a sale at the school the following day. The next morning, students excitedly gathered at the assembly hall to exchange the tokens they collected for used toys and other items. Tommy noticed that Kathy wasn't buying anything, so he offered to give her some of his tokens, but Kathy noted that she was just waiting for the crowd to dissipate. Tommy then told her that it didn't matter if she didn't find anything good at the sale, because he'd already bought her something. When Tommy gave her a cassette tape, Kathy kissed him on the cheek. That night, Kathy listened to the tape in the girls' quarters and clutched a pillow as the song Never Let Me Go played on the stereo. She swayed to the song for a while until she realized that Ruth was watching her from the door. One day, Lucy decided to tell the students what would happen to them when they grow up. She noted that other children outside Hailsham would grow up and work as actors, bus conductors, teachers, or race car drivers. But another fate awaits the students. She revealed that none of them will grow up to get a job like other children, because they will donate their vital organs even before they become middle-aged. Their life will be considered complete by the time they make their 3rd and 4th donation. Lucy notes that they can only live decent lives if they know who and what they are. The following day, Emily announced that Lucy was no longer working at the school, but she didn't mention the reason for her departure. As Emily continued her speech, Kathy got anxious when she noticed Ruth and Tommy holding each other's hands. One day, she got even more upset when she found Ruth kissing Tommy on the cheek. Kathy was perplexed why Ruth started to like Tommy after playing pranks on him repeatedly. When Ruth and Tommy became lovers, Kathy hoped they would eventually break up like the other couples in school, but they never did. After the students reach the age of 18, Kathy, Ruth, and Tommy move to farm buildings known as the cottages, where they're given a certain amount of freedom. They can take trips in the surrounding countryside, and some of them can volunteer to be carers. During their stay, they meet other people who grew up in other schools and homes. A couple named Rodney and Chrissy makes an instant impression on the trio because they seem to know a lot about the outside world. While having breakfast, Kathy notices Ruth squeezing Tommy's shoulder, but he seems annoyed by it. After the meal, Kathy asks Ruth if she's copying the habit from Rodney and Chrissy, who are emulating another couple from a TV show. Ruth surmises that Kathy must be feeling resentful because she's a single girl surrounded by other couples, but Kathy contends that it's not true. When Kathy sees lewd magazines in the trash, she takes them to the barn to look at the pictures. When Tommy notices her flipping through the pages rapidly, he remarks that she won't enjoy it if she goes through it that way. Tommy surmises that she must be looking at it for another purpose, but Kathy argues that the pictures just work differently for girls. After finishing a magazine, Kathy hands it over to Tommy and tells her to give it to Ruth to find out if she enjoys it. Later, Ruth approaches Kathy and tells her that Rodney and Chrissy saw someone with a striking resemblance to her when they drove to town. Kathy deduces that the couple might have seen her original, but Ruth notes that they're not sure, so she invites Kathy to come with her so they can confirm it. Soon, Rodney and Chrissy take the trio to town. During the drive, Rodney asks the trio how much experience they have with the outside world. Ruth notes that they had a lot of role-playing exercises at school, but Tommy points out that they don't count. When they go to a diner, the trio orders the same food as Rodney because they don't know what to pick. While having their meal, the couple asks them if they know how to get a deferral to push back their organ donation by 3 years. Rodney recounts a rumor that couples can be given a few more years together if they can prove that they're really in love. Chrissy and Rodney assume that the trio knows how to get the deferral because the couple and the stories they heard come from Hailsham. When the trio tells them they don't know anything about the deferrals, Rodney begins to suspect that they're hiding something. Kathy tells him that there are many stories at Hailsham, but most of them turn out to be untrue. After leaving the diner, Rodney and Chrissy take the trio to a travel agency to look for Ruth's original. While peeking through the window, they see a woman with the same hair as Ruth, but they realize that it's not her when the woman turns around. Later, Ruth expresses her disappointment that the woman wasn't her original. She contends that she already had a feeling that they'd never find her original in an office because they're only modeled after convicts, junkies, and courtesans. While taking a walk in the woods, Tommy tells Chrissy that the deferrals could explain the purpose of the gallery in their school. He notes that their school's administrators must be using their art to see what's in their soul, and finds out if the couples applying for deferrals are telling the truth. When Kathy asks if he wants to apply for a deferral with Ruth, Tommy points out that it wouldn't work because he didn't submit much art when he was still in school. Kathy reminds Tommy that the deferrals are just rumors anyway. One evening, Ruth stops by Kathy's room while she's listening to Never Let Me Go on her Walkman. Ruth tells her that she knows Kathy is waiting for her to split up with Tommy so she can have a chance to be with him. Ruth contends that it will never happen because Tommy only sees Kathy as a good friend. She then reveals that Tommy told her about the lewd magazines and claims that she understands what Kathy was trying to do when she was looking at the pictures. The next morning, Kathy loses hope that she will ever be with Tommy, so she approaches a messenger and tells him that she wants to apply to be a carer. The messenger promises to bring her the forms the next day to start the process. Ruth and Tommy eventually separate, but Kathy hardly sees Tommy because she's busy with her training. When Kathy begins working as a carer, she even has less time to think about Tommy and Ruth. As years go by, she begins to think that she'll never see them again. Most carers go through the motions as they wait for the day they're called to donate their organs. But Kathy enjoys her job because she likes traveling across the country to care for donors in various hospitals. For Kathy, the real challenge for being a carer is the early completion, when the donor dies unexpectedly after their first or second donation. Kathy notes that she hasn't become immune to early completions, but she has learned to live with them. One day, a patient Kathy has been caring for dies after an operation, so she has to sign the release form. While filling up the documents, a nurse offers Kathy a bed for the night, but she notes that she can be at home in only 2 hours. Suddenly, Kathy sees Ruth's file on the computer, so the nurse asks if she knows her. When Kathy reveals that she grew up with her, the nurse discloses that Ruth is not as strong as she was because she already made 2 donations. When Kathy visits Ruth in her ward, she discovers that Ruth already uses a medical walker to get around. Ruth reveals that she's been keeping tabs on her and Tommy over the years despite their lack of contact. She notes that Tommy has already made his second donation, but he's still doing well. Ruth tells Kathy that she doesn't want to survive her third donation because she heard that some donors remain conscious even after completing their fourth donation. She notes she doesn't want that to happen because the survivors still have to make more donations in a vegetative state until the doctors switch them off. Instead of going home, Kathy decides to stay at the hospital that night to be with Ruth. In the morning, Ruth tells Kathy that she wants to take a trip to the beach with her and visit Tommy on the way. Later on, they go for a drive and stop by Tommy's hospital. When they see Tommy outside, Ruth seems hesitant to get out of the car, but Kathy immediately greets him. After giving Kathy a warm hug, Tommy goes to the car to greet Ruth with a kiss on the cheek. On the way to the beach, Tommy informs the women that Hailsham was shut down, and the only remaining schools are like battery farms. When they arrive, Tommy runs to an abandoned boat at the shore, but the women stay behind. Later on, Ruth asks Kathy to forgive her for keeping Tommy away from her. She confesses that she always knew they were meant to be together, but she felt like she had to make Tommy fall for her because she didn't want to be alone. Ruth contends that she can put things right if Tommy and Kathy get a deferral. She discloses that she planned the trip to give them Mary Claude's address, so they can apply for the deferral and spend more time together. When they return to Tommy's hospital, Tommy shows Kathy his numerous artwork. He discloses that he started working on them at the cottages after learning about the deferrals, so he has something to show the administrators. Tommy recalls Kathy's lewd magazines and reveals that he knows why she was looking at them. He notes that Ruth thought Kathy had them because she wanted to learn about lovemaking, but Tommy knows she was looking for her original. Kathy confesses that she often experiences intense urges to copulate, so she figured that she'd find her original in those magazines. That night, Kathy reads a book to Tommy to put him to sleep. When she stops and puts the book down, Tommy asks her to continue, but Kathy walks toward him to make love to him. The next day, Tommy and Kathy start making plans to visit Mary Claude. Afterward, Kathy visits Ruth at her hospital to tell her that they're going to apply for the deferral. Not long after Kathy's visit, Ruth makes her third donation and passes away on the operating table. A few days later, Kathy and Tommy visit Mary Claude at her house and introduce themselves. When Mary Claude invites them in, Tommy discloses that they've heard about the deferrals and they have figured out the purpose of their gallery. Mary Claude asks them to explain further, so Tommy tells her that they think the school used their art to look into the students' souls to verify if they deserve a deferral. Tommy confesses that he didn't create a lot of artwork in school, so he brought some of the drawings he created over the years. As Tommy shows her all the drawings he brought, Emily enters the room and tells the couple that she still remembers both of them. She explains that they used their artwork to show people what the students are capable of and prove that the children are all but human. Emily notes that Hailsham was trying to provide an answer to a question no one was asking. The people, however, are only concerned with preserving their lives. When Tommy and Kathy realize that there are no deferrals, Emily confesses that they didn't create the gallery to look into their souls, but to determine if they had souls at all. As the couple leaves the house, Mary Claude expresses her dismay that she can't help them. On the way back to the hospital, Tommy asks Kathy to pull over for a moment. Tommy then gets out of the car and starts screaming to release his frustration. It doesn't take long before Kathy comes out to console him. Soon, Tommy goes into the operating room to make his third donation. Kathy watches from the window as the doctors prepare him for the procedure. As Tommy lies on the table, he smiles at Kathy to let her know that he's accepted his fate. 2 weeks after losing Tommy, Kathy receives a notice indicating that she will make her first donation in 1 month. Kathy stops by a field and imagines it as a place where the things she lost wind up. She fantasizes that Tommy would appear on the horizon and wave to her, but she realizes that the fantasy can't go beyond that. She can only be grateful that she spent time with Tommy, even if it was very short. Kathy wonders if they're really different from the people who receive their organs, since everyone eventually reaches completion. She speculates that no one really feels like they have enough time to live, and no one really understands what they've lived through.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.